Hello and welcome to video number 209, 5-Year Club video number 209. 209. Hungry Cat Edition. Hungry Cat is hungry and you can only see her butt. Molly has a dental appointment tomorrow morning, which means that she cannot eat tomorrow morning. She doesn't know that yet. She's probably going to be upset. And so I'm trying to feed her a little bit later tonight so that maybe in the morning she's not as grumpy. Good luck. But let's get going. This is the 5th story from the 4th book of the Japanese Family Storehouse. Extortionate prices for ice lobsters. What? Ice, but see, ice is like I-S-E, which I think is some land or setting that has to do with gods in Japanese folklore, at least according to some other story that I read in this book. Oh, Molly, come on. She's invading. So let's get it started. All right. In a world where nothing is granted, life without means... In a world where nothing is granted, life without means to support it... I hate these sentences. In a world where nothing is granted life... Oh, there we go. In a world where nothing is granted life without means to support it, worrying too much over how to make a living is a waste of precious time. Every year we complain how difficult things have become, telling each other that we shall never manage. But when it comes to getting ready for New Year, there is not a household where rice cakes are not prepared, and not one of us too poor to buy a pickled herring roe. We even see prosperous, well-managed households where stocks are laid in to last till the 3rd moon, rows of tango yellowfish and pheasants hanging in the kitchen, piles of firewood in the lumber shed, stacks of rice bales in the yard, or places where all paying is finished by the 20th, with the rest of the year for receiving only. At the same time, it must be admitted, there are... Molly, come on, get down. Down, down, down. All right. Molly. There we go. Okay. At the same time, it must be admitted, there are households where the margin could hardly be more slender, where the accounts balance on paper, but every due on sale must be in before debts on purchases can be paid, and where the buying of clogs and socks for servants' presents must wait till after midnight on the 13th, so hard-pressed are such people by the world's insistence that debts must be settled first. Then where are the employers who have scraped through by economizing on the new outfits for their articled maids and apprentices, sewing plain blue linings on the cheap ready-dyed material they can find in the shops? New Year's Day is the day when the world gets its first visible evidence of how shaky these businesses really are. Still, economy is undoubtedly the watchword for New Year, replacing cups and bowls, which will serve longer, repairing the house, changing the tops of tatami mats, painting the kitchen stove, touching up here, there, and everywhere. Each item is trifling enough in itself, perhaps, but together they add up to an outlay which lies heavy on the account books for the rest of the year. A wise man will leave most of this till later, when the longer days of spring or summer have come. One year, ice lobsters, I-S-E, and eternity oranges were in short supply. In Edo, where a daimyo needed these things for their New Year celebrations, the shops in Setomono-cho, Suda-cho, Kojimachi, and anywhere else one looked were selling lobsters at 5 gold koban each and eternity oranges at 3. That year, they were short in the home provinces too, and even in places like Osaka, an ice lobster was 2.5 monmei of silver, and an eternity orange 7 or 8 fun. But spring would not be the same without them, and people felt obliged to buy in order to decorate their horai trays in the traditional way. In Edo, of course, the townspeople are singularly lacking in moderation and have little thought for the morrow. In Sakai, however, in the neighborhood of Oshoji, on the borderline between Setsu and Uzumi provinces, there was a man called Hinokuchiya who kept a sharp eye on all matters affecting his livelihood and had spent a lifetime avoiding unnecessary expenses, and, for his part, even if the horai tray was a custom inherited from the age of the gods, he could see no purpose in decorating it with goods bought at such extortionate prices. Instead of ice lobsters, he bought cartwheel shrimps. In place of eternity oranges, he displayed a pile of 9-year lemons. What is a 9-year lemon? Under the circumstances, he argued, the goddess Tiramisu? No. The goddess Amaterasu herself could hardly blame me. The essential favor of spring seemed in no way diminished, and Hinokuchiya's device was praised as worthy of a man of true ingenuity. That year, the whole of Sakai made its New Year's preparations without buying a single ice lobster or eternity orange. The people of Sakai have a quiet mode of life, but they are the reverse of dreamy when they use an abacus. And though they keep a careful check in private, they nevertheless have a sense of proper style, maintaining considerable outward state and strictly observing their social obligations. Still, it is a town with a suggestion of old age, and people from other parts find it difficult to settle here. Its citizens fix their budgets for the whole period from New Year to New Year's Eve at one stroke, and they will not spend a penny more without good reason, nor buy a single item not strictly needed for that year. Everything is firmly under control. A man will keep a striped cloak of homespun silk for 34 or 35 years without once having to send it to the wash. Well, that's kind of gross. Or will cool himself after summer with the same fragile folding fan. A mother will give her marriage trousseau to her daughter in state as good as new, and it will be passed on to her daughter's daughter without a crease in the wrong place. 7 miles away from Sakai is Osaka, another world where they live for the day and let the morrow care for itself. There it is the rule to be extravagant whenever the chance arises, and plans are made and changed on a moment's inspiration. This, after all, is natural, since fortunes are so rapidly made in Osaka. The women are even more open-handed than the men. Not content with a change of clothes at New Year, Bon, summer, and winter, they buy new dresses for every occasion which offers an excuse, discard them after a brief spell of merciless treatment, and use the material as scrap for the sewing box. It is amusing to observe how differently the people of these two places behave. Sakai standing solidly on thrift, Osaka living adventurously. A prosperous man, however, is respected in any town. A man without a fortune, no matter how intelligent his looks, receives a hearing nowhere. When everything which even the stupidest of rich men does is accepted as clever, it makes the position of an intelligent man who fails to make a living all the more unbearable. The god Daikoku, who does not usually tell lies, has declared that a man who cudgels his brains and tires his strength in youth will early taste the pleasures of old age. But we must remember, all the same, that the chances for success have never been so slim as they are today. So think about that, right? You think it's bad now? Apparently 330 years ago, this author is saying the chances for success have never been so slim as they are today. 330 years ago, this guy was still like, oh man, times are rough. And I guess in some ways it was. Medicine wasn't as good. But, I think one of the messages that I've gotten from looking at this stuff is that we always think things are worse than they actually are. And if we look through history, we'll see people moaning and groaning for the last thousands of years about how bad things are. And things worked out. So, some things look bad now. Climate change, a lot of the political stuff, United States national debt. But there are solutions to these on the horizon, and with hard work, they can be overcome. The amount of gold and silver in the world has increased tremendously since ancient times, but where people have taken and hidden, it is an unsolved mystery. If money is so precious that people can hardly bring themselves to show it to the light of day, It should certainly not be spent, not a penny of it, on unnecessary things. Making a fortune takes a long, long time. Spending it takes no time at all. Late one night, a man wanting to buy some vinegar came knocking at Hinokuchiya's shop door. His shouts, which could be heard faintly in the inner part of the house, behind the partition dividing it from the shop, roused a manservant from his slumbers. "How much do you want?" he shouted back. "Just a zenny's worth, if it's not too much trouble." At this, the servant pretended to fall asleep again, and the customer, who could get no further reply, went away. Next morning, the master summoned this servant and told him, for no apparent purpose, to dig a hole 3 feet deep in front of the gateway. Obediently, the man stripped to the waist, fetched a pick, and worked away strenuously at the stony ground, digging deeper and deeper, dripping with sweat. "I've dug 3 feet," he said at last. "I thought there might be some zenny there," said the master. "Haven't you found any yet?" "I can't see anything except stone and broken shells." "Then take a lesson from the fact that, after all this labor, you haven't found a single zenny. Perhaps you will think a zenny's worth of trade more valuable in the future." "Back in the old days," Hinokuchiya went on, "when the linked verse master Sogi Hoshi was visiting Sakai, and poetry was all the rage, there was a poor druggist here who was an amateur of all things, and he invited Sogi and others up to his best room over the shop to hold a linked verse session. Just when it came to the host's turn to make a verse, a customer called at the shop to buy some pepper. The host begged the company to excuse him a moment, went downstairs, weighed out 2 drams of pepper, took 3 zenny, returned, gave quiet consideration to his verse, and recited it. Sogi, it is said, was lost in admiration at his composure. This is the proper way for men to attend to their duties. When I myself started, I was a mere petty tradesman, and the secret of how I became rich in a single lifetime has lain solely in my careful approach to money matters. It will do you no harm to hear about this and try to imitate me. First, a man who lives in lodgings should calculate the rent on a daily basis and set aside that amount each day. He should use the same methods with borrowed money, never allowing the interest to get ahead of him by a single month, and when he uses the money, it will be doing a business for no one except himself. The method for repaying the borrowed money itself is carefully to set aside, in a separate place, 1/2 of 1 month's profits whenever they occur, and if you put only 100 monmei away each year towards a debt of 1 kanmei, you will have a clean slate in 10 years. Anyway, I think this is a particularly interesting point. He's saying 1/2 of all profits go to paying off debt. So let's reread that a second. He should use the same methods with borrowed money, never allowing the interest to get ahead of him by a single month, and when he uses the money, it will be doing business for no one except himself. The method for repaying the borrowed money itself is carefully to set aside, in a separate place, 1/2 of 1 month's of one's profits whenever they occur, and if you put only 100 monmei away each year towards a debt of 1 kanmei, you will have a clean slate in 10 years. Okay, so let's think about this. What is our profit? Is our profit our entire paycheck? Or is our profit the entire paycheck minus the things we have to pay for in order to continue getting the paycheck? So basic rent, basic transportation to keep our job, things like that. I think I would argue the second one. And so if we say, for example, that a person would spend 50% on necessities, which is like the 50-30-20 rule, which I've discussed before, not that I like it a lot, but it's out there, then the profit would be the other 50% of your income. And so this would recommend paying down 25% on your debts rather than 20%, which is what the Elizabeth Warren / 50-20-30 rule proposes. So I just wanted to tie that in with modern personal finance rules because I find it interesting when you look back a few hundred years and they are kind of talking about the same proportions that we're discussing in 2018 in terms of how to manage your financial life. People who make the books balance by leaving such money jumbled up with their own are on the road to ruin. Even for purely private expenses, you should note everything in a petty cash book. Mistakes often occur when you are shopping, and if you have no check, you will never notice them. On days when you do no business, spend absolutely no money. This is an interesting sentence. On days when you do no business, spend absolutely no money. If you are not doing something productive on a day that generates money, do not spend money that day. All right, that's an interesting rule. I haven't come across that one. Do not get into the habit of buying on credit. So 333 years ago, do not get into the habit of buying on credit. Since these expenses make no immediate impression, they accumulate all the more rapidly, and when it comes to repaying, you will be horrified at the bill. 333 years ago. Same crap we're dealing with now. If you ever reach the stage where you are ready to offer your whole house as security for a loan, do no such thing. So that's taking out a home equity line of credit. Sell the house instead, no matter how much face you lose. I have never heard of anyone redeeming such a pledge. Your house gets hopelessly involved in the monthly interest and is finally taken from you free of charge. If you change your mind in time and leave the district, at least you may salvage a cupboard's worth of property, and a living of some sorts is possible. In Sakai, newly rich are rare. It is a place where fortunes have deep, firm roots, stretching back for 3 generations or more, and where goods bought on speculation centuries ago are still kept in stock, awaiting the favorable moment of sale. The Red Ink Corporation is secure in its monopoly, the firearms manufacturers have government patronage, and the finances of the Drug Merchants Association are so sound that outside assistance to cover the Nagasaki bills of exchange is never sought. The people ordinarily conduct themselves with restraint, but there are occasions when they do things which might be thought impossible elsewhere. It was no mean feat, for instance, for a single man to cover the cost of the whole Nanshuji temple from sanctuary to kitchen. There may be differences at heart, but the customs of Sakai people resemble those of Kyoto. That they are enthusiastic culture seekers is evident from the fact that when Kanzei Dayu staged his benefit performance of No some time ago at Kitano Shichihanmatsu in Kyoto, with the price of each family box at 1 golden bankin, reservations from Sakai were fewer only than those from Kyoto and Osaka. In population, Sakai is much the same as Nara, Otsu, or Fushimi, but no one from these places reserved a single box. A bankin is easily said, but spending it is a different matter. And when even worldly wise townsmen compete for theater seats at that price and pack the house to capacity, we are indeed living in an age which deserves, as the No play say, to last 1,000 autumns, nay, 10,000 years. And that is the end of the story. We have finished book 4. It's now on to book 5. And hope you enjoyed it.